and welcome to Stories and Stuff, and welcome to my classroom. Today I'll be talking about letter confusions, where children muddle letters like B and D. It can be the bane of any teacher and lots of parents' lives because it's really difficult to sort out once those children have got in a muddle with those letters. A letter confusion is where children muddle two letters that look very similar. The most common are B and D, P and Q, but you can find it with other letters like I and J or F and T. The result can be a right old muddle like this. But where do these confusions come from? Well, if you take an ordinary object like a bat, it's still a bat this way, and it doesn't matter which way I turn it, it's still really easy to recognise as a bat. It's not quite the same with some of our letters. If you take the letter B, for example, this is a B, or it could be a 6. Now, it's a D. Or it could be a 9, or a Q. And now it looks like a letter P. No wonder children get in such a muddle. I think the crux of the problem comes from the way we form our letters and where the letters start. If you take a look at the capital and lowercase letters, you'll see. The capital B starts from the top, it has a straight back, and these curves. The lowercase b is very similar, a straight back and this big curve here. Now look at a capital D. It's got a straight back with a curve. Very similar to those B's, but a lowercase d is completely different. It starts in the middle. A lot of children form their D's starting from the top, so they might do it this way or they might do it that way. And if you're starting both your B's and D's from the top, you can see how easy it is to get them in a muddle. Now, it's easy for me to sit here and say we need to start our letters from the right place, but we're talking about very little children here, and it's quite fiddly to do. There is something you can do, and that's when children are learning to do their B's and D's, making sure they're starting with either the stick first or the circle. So children learning to form B would do the stick first, and then the circle. And children learning to do their D would do the circle shape and then add the stick on afterwards. And that is a very early way of forming their B and D. Part of the problem in schools is that the resources we have to help children with B and D reinforce that confusion that they have. It's a bit like if you're trying to learn the difference between a crow and a rook, and somebody says, well, a rook has got grey around their beak and they have feathers down their legs that look a bit like trousers. If you've got a picture of a rook and a crow in front of you, you've got to remember which one it was that had that grey around their beak. So the way to do it is learn about a rook. I know a rook has light grey around their beard and they have these feathers that grow down their legs that look like trousers. Once you've learned that that is a rook, you know when you see a crow that definitely isn't a rook, and then you can start to learn it's a crow. And it's a bit like that with B and D. Quite often children are taught to hold their fingers up so it looks like B and D, but they're seeing both shapes. They might see the word bed and a picture of a bed with B at the beginning and D at the end, but they're still seeing those two together, which can be really confusing. I think the key is to start with B, and you can do this with a picture and thinking about the start letters. So the B is a bat and a ball, and you can show them a picture of a bat and a ball next to it. It's bat and ball, and both those letters, b, bat, ball, start with the right letter. I've seen teachers use a drum and a drumstick, which is fine, but the trouble with that is drum doesn't sound like it starts with a D. Most children will write drum like that, so it doesn't really help. So that's a little bit about letter confusions and where they come from. In my next video, I'll show you the sort of things you can do with children to help them, some fun games and activities you can play. And those can apply to any letter confusions, not just B and D.